I'm so excited to chat. First of all, I want to do a brief intro of like you in my world, and then I want you to introduce yourself and your business. So, Haley has been a client of mine. She is, in my eyes, a marketing genius. She is the most like, I will say, like, I feel like you just have like a heart of gold. And it's such a joy to have you in my world. You have been coaching with me for like, I am not great with time. I would say like about a year and a half, maybe a tiny bit longer ish,
Yeah.
or a little less, around a year and a half. And so what I really want to take people through is your journey from where you were when you started coaching with me to where you are now, and give a really honest reflection on what that's been like and what's been really valuable and all of that kind of stuff, really to help inspire people, see what's possible, um, give them help, like an honest reflection on what really does move the needle, that sort of stuff, so that this can be really helpful, not only for people that maybe are considering coaching or considering coaching with me or coaching club, but also are just really curious, like the best way to grow their business, in a way that feels authentic to them. So that's the goal for today's conversation. But first, I want you to introduce yourself and your business briefly so that people can have a snapshot of who you are, what you're all about.
Awesome. My name is Hayley. I run Hayley Denker Marketing. We're a digital marketing agency. I'm in Boston. My team is kind of all around the East Coast. That's not true. Caitlin's in Arizona. And I kind of pivoted I was in corporate marketing for a while. Then I did marketing consulting when my kids were really little. I have 2 kids. And I really love like collaborating and working on a team. And so I decided that I wanted to shift from just a marketing consultant to really build an agency. And, that was a decision to, step away from the nitty gritty client work and really make the leap into like, I want to own and run a successful business. I want to be I'm really passionate about being a good leader and a good supportive boss to my team. So, yeah, I've done different kinds of coaching before, one-on-one retreats. I've done some group coaching. And I had someone post on their Instagram that they were working with you. I immediately had a call, and it was so easy to say yes. It was like, I knew instantly that like, you were my people, like we just like clicked, but it really was kind of the topic. And if I remember correctly, like where I was at the time, I felt like I was just being very responsive. And that's kind of me. Like, I'm not someone who like can write out a 5-year plan. Like I can see my big goals in this very like, like you have those little floaties in your eyes, like they're there and I can see them and I can feel them and I know them, but to articulate them all the time is really hard. So I never was someone who set goals. I really just responded and just like kept going, like keep chugging along. And you were the person who kind of started introducing that like goals don't have to be scary. They don't have, like, for me, it was like, well, what's the point? I'm like, what if I don't achieve them? That's going to feel terrible and derail my whole little chugging along self. So let's not set them and let's just chug along. But that's totally not how I approach things now. And so you were really talking about, do you set goals? And I think like my first, it was like, oh, whether or not my like big yes wasn't, I have a goal that I want to reach and Libby's going to help me get there. It was, Libby's going to help me set goals, get comfortable with them and achieve them. It was like, that was my block in the beginning, was like goals in general were scary. And that was what I was really committed to, and was like, okay, this is going to solve that problem. This is going to help me set the goals. I think other people probably have the goals and need help reaching them. For me, I wasn't even there. I was too afraid to even set them.
Yeah. And now I'm also a responder. So I'll have to like respond to the things in the moment. And I'm like, oh, I got to ask about this. So we'll sort of hop around. Now I see you super confidently setting goals. There's none of this like, I'm not sure. I don't know if I'm doing this right, or I don't know if this is the right goal. Do you feel that way about setting goals?
Yeah. Well, I think one thing you talked about was like a lot of the work in the beginning is like finding your recipe, like finding out the best way for you to approach goals. And that's going to change depending on what your goals are. But I absolutely like have my recipe. So now it's kind of like more playful and like more like, oh, like what now the playing and the figuring out is like, okay, what do I want my goals to be? Like, because I kind of feel like I know how to achieve them now. I know how to like set myself up. I know the mindset I have to have, how I have to approach it. Now it's like, what do I want these goals to be? And how can I make sure that they're tied into like big picture goals, breaking them up like for the month. I mean, I still freak out. I still have but I at least have tools now to be like, okay, I know exactly. I know exactly what to do. Like you were away and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going through it. And I'm like, wait, but I know what to do. Like I totally did thought models while you were away. Cause I was like, okay, Libby would tell me to do
brings
this.
So much joy to my heart to hear that.
Cause and it's actually, I don't even have to do like the thought model. I'm like, that's a thought error.
Yeah.
That's a thought error. Like that is something that I'm making things like that's a big thing with me. And what I've discovered is if I get a feeling, I turn it into, it means all these things. I sat on my couch earlier last week and I'm like, you're running a really successful business that's like growing really fast. Of course it's stressful. I'm allowed to be stressed out. I'm a human being. That doesn't mean that anything's wrong or broken. I'm just going to like sit and like, then I'm going to decide how to respond. And that's, I mean, a year ago, I would have like, I don't know what I would have done. I would have started burning things to the ground to been like,
well, that's what I was going to say. The most common thing that I see, and I see this with like literally 95+% of people is who do what you do, which is very, very, very common, is our brain wants to solve the stress. And we've been led to believe that we solve the stress by changing our circumstances. And so most people will go and change their business model, try something new, unconsciously drop clients, like all these things to relieve the stress load. And that in itself is the definition of self-sabotage. And I see so many people who go through this pattern unknowingly and like have built and are running really successful businesses and abandon them and start new ones. And it happens over and over. And they're like, I don't know what's wrong. And it's like, well, because you haven't addressed that you're creating this from the inside out. It's so easy to go about like life and business and not see that we're actually the ones doing this, and learning to work with those emotions is so like, it's everything.
One thing I thought of over this weekend, because I'm so much more aware of like the thought errors and these things now. Like I'm in this land of it's so the turnaround time is it's like faster for me to be able to be like, oh, now like I can kind of pick this apart and see that that's a thought error and kind of realign myself back to what I'm doing. I thought to myself this weekend, I'm like, it's almost, I'm not really sure how to say this, but I'm like, I wonder if success in business is as easy as like just keep going. Or like it's not necessarily just keep going, but like is success in business as easy as don't burn it to the ground? Because I'm like, that's what I'm kind of like figuring out is like, I just have to keep like going and keep addressing things and keep figuring things out. And things fail when you give up or when you self-sabotage or when you don't like really address the stuff and figure it out. And I'm like, I think if I just like I can almost have some peace in that if I just stay committed to figuring these things out, like there's no catastrophe that's going to happen.
Yeah. So here's my thoughts about that. The answer to that from my point of view is yes and no. So you can say now, if I just keep going, my success is inevitable because you now understand how to create success purposefully.
Yeah.
It's intentional, it's on purpose, and you have the skills and the tools to like problem solve and see what's actually going on. So yes, that's why I always say to people, the only way for you to fail is to give up. That's literally the only way to fail. Otherwise, everything else you can figure out. Everything else you can problem solve. You can get to the root of why things are happening. You can make sense of the whole puzzle and you can take it apart and put it back together the way you want, and you can keep going and you will succeed, period, with the way that I teach it and then I think about it. But for so many people, they don't have that deeper understanding. They don't have the tools. They don't have that way of thinking about it. Like a lot of people will just like either take a lot of action and then not understand what action got results, etc. And it's all this messy like tangle in their brain, which is very confusing. So they just like keep taking action thinking, like I think Adriana said one time, she was like, I used to think that goals was just like make your to-do list longer. And it's like a lot of people think that you just like pile on more in order to grow. And that's actually not how it works. So that's why my answer is like yes and no. Is like yes, where you're at now and the understanding that you have and the rewiring that you've done, it's literally about just keep going.
Yeah.
And every time you hit a new level in business and you choose a new goal, a new higher growth point, all the stuff's going to come up. We do the work again. You'll raise to that level. That'll be your new normal. That's like your new set point. And you just keep going and keep going. And so like, that's why I often say that, and people talk about this all the time too, is like, you're growing into the person that naturally achieves those goals. Because what you used to be able to achieve, like Hayley of whatever, 3, 4, 5 years ago, probably couldn't do half of what you can do now. Because not only are you gaining the skills, but it's just becoming who you are to create these kinds of results with more confidence.
Yeah. It's like exercise. Like you just keep building on like your strength. Like you don't like one exercise that used to stress you out. Once you've gotten there with a certain weight, then you just add more and you're not worried about, oh no, can I do that and the weight that I added? No, you've already achieved 50 pounds.
Yeah.
Now you're gonna add on more. You're not stressing about the 50 pounds and then the added 10. You just keep adding more. Yeah.
Completely. Okay. So I want to give people a snapshot of, we've been working together, like I said, about 1.5 years. You gave a snapshot of where you were at when you came to me. You were shifting into really having decided you wanted to build this agency. You didn't want to do just consulting work anymore. Or did you call it consulting work, or you were actually doing the work though too? It wasn't just consulting, like you were
consulting and execution. Yeah. I was doing. Yeah.
So like freelance consulting sort of situation. Okay. Yeah. So actually first talk to me about, why did you decide that you wanted to change from freelance consulting to growing an agency?
Well, this might sound really weird, but I don't actually think like there's a lot of parts of marketing that I don't think I'm the best at, but I still wanted to give my clients the best. So I wanted a team because I'm like, I am excellent at this, but someone else is going to be better. And I want that person on my team. And then I want us to work for you. So that was always really appealing to me because I wanted to like deliver, like, I knew what I wanted my end result to be. And I'm not great at everything. So I wanted to fill
Naturally, nobody is. Yeah.
And I was at capacity. I had as many clients as I could take on. And I'm like, I couldn't take on one more. And it was getting to the point where it was like, wait a minute, didn't I sign up for this to have a little more I want some flexibility, and I have 2 kids that I want to show up for. And, I was like, I can't keep just taking on clients and then end up working 80 hours a week. I have a friend who does that because she really knows that she doesn't want to grow a team, but she really wants to keep making more and more money. So she just keeps taking on more clients. And I'm like, God love you. That sounds awful. But
That's
she looks
the
at me
recipe
and
for
thinks
burnout.
mine's awful. So
Yeah. If she can manage that, that's great. But the thing about that model is you cap out.
yeah,
Like there is a point where when your money and your income, when your income and your time are tied, there's a point where you cap out.
yeah,
Not only because of the time, but also because of the energy.
yep,
You can only push hard for so long. Okay. So that makes perfect sense to me. It kind of sounds the same, especially when you were talking about like wanting to deliver the best, wanting to do the best work for your clients. I think that also, like for people that are listening, if that's not a belief that you have, like a strong desire to want to deliver the best to your people, I would highly recommend that's a belief that you start to build. Because I see a lot of people, and this is actually past me, who didn't have that strong desire. I had a desire to do great work, but I didn't care so much about doing the best for my clients or doing the best for the people that I was serving. And it was really more about like focus on myself as opposed to my people. And that held me back for a really long time because I was always looking at business through the lens of how can I get what I want? And the truth is that when you're thinking about yourself and not your clients or your customers, you're not going to get very good at selling.
right,
Or even creating really for business purposes.
right.
So there has to be that balance. But so that makes perfect sense to me because I now have built this incredibly strong desire. In fact, I think that that's like my number one driver is helping my clients and delivering the absolute best that I can in terms of like in my lane. But I all the time will see like, I can see super clearly certain like tools or certain lessons that I know could help my clients. And so I am always investing in like, how can I get better at that tool? Or how can I get better at teaching that tool? Because I care so much about delivering the best. Because I know that I've worked with coaches in the past who quite honestly didn't have the full spectrum of ability to help. Maybe they could help in one certain area, but I actually needed help somewhere else that I didn't know it. And so I would invest all this money and work with them and not get the results because they couldn't actually help me with what I needed. And so I'm such a strong believer that business coaches should not only understand business really well and understand all of the aspects of business really well, but they should also be very good at helping like behavior and personal development and all of that sort of stuff because they're all so tied. So it's the same. It makes perfect sense to me. Okay, so you wanted to make that shift so you could better serve your people and you could take on more. So give me a snapshot of, in my mind, it seems like you are doing that and you're like totally succeeding at it. It may not feel like it every day, but give me a snapshot of, I want to know like tangibles of, actually there's 2 pieces. I always think about growth in 2 pieces. There's the measurable things, the things outside of you, right? Like the size of your team, the money that you're making, the hours that you're working, etc. There's that stuff. the kind of clients that you have, the number of clients you have. And then there's the internal stuff of like potentially feeling very differently or having really different set of beliefs. So will you give me a snapshot? Let's start with like the tangible stuff. Like, what do you think is one or two of the biggest shifts that you could like quantify and say is the growth that you've had?
I have 2 team members. They're amazing. I've brought them out to Boston a couple times. We're transitioning them to employees from contractors this year. I think I've tripled my revenue. A doubled client load.
What are your thoughts about the kind of clients? Do you feel like that's shifted or no?
I wasn't really solid on who my clients were for a long time. And I was kind of just taking anyone. So now I think we really know who our clients are and set and ask really good questions and set really good expectations in like initial first calls to make sure that it's a good fit. Because I think with marketing, people can often assume that they need marketing help. In fact, I think a lot of people who come to me who think they need marketing help, I'm like, you need a coach. Like, it's not a marketing problem here. So I think we're much more clear on who our client is. And it's not that they weren't coming to us before, but I think I was taking anyone out of this like desperation and like black mindset that I think this year for the first time I've said no to people a couple of times. And that was like so freeing to be able to be like, you're not really you're not going to be happy. We're not going to get you the results that you're asking for, and finding other ways to serve those people. So still leaving that conversation feeling like I served them, that's gotten really good. What else? Tangible. Moved into a big office. I had this like,
yeah, that's actually one of my favorite, like, I think of snapshot memories with my clients of like being able to compare, like when we do reviews and evaluations, we look back at like, take yourself back to a snapshot in the past and then compare, you know? And so I often do that with my clients of like moments where I felt like I could feel really strongly where someone was at. And I remember so clearly that conversation of you learning that you had to leave your past office and was like, it's over. Business is over.
Yep. It's done. It's done. I cannot go back to working in my basement. Like,
and now you have this like crazy giant office, which is the most amazing space. And like, that's a huge up level.
Yeah. Yeah. That was awesome. And very funny. Like, again, like I said, if that happened to me now, it would be like, oh, okay, we'll find a new space. It's going to be cooler, like awesome. Whereas before I was like, well, that's it. We're done.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. One of the things that I like to think I help with a lot, I hope that I do, is oftentimes when people come to me, they've been operating and functioning from a very dramatic brain. I think creative people tend to have really dramatic brains. And that's a beautiful thing in creating and in vision work and all of that sort of stuff, because it's those pushing of the perspectives that really bring out certain emotions, which create beautiful art and create beautiful work, etc. So I think in a lot of ways we have or have been conditioned to have a lot of drama, and whether you're good at managing it or not is totally different for each person. But when you bring a drama brain into business, all it creates is is chaos and uncertainty and lots of just lack of like stability and consistency and growth, really, because then you're just all over the place, because what you have inside is what you create outside. And so anyways, that makes me so happy to hear that, because to me that's a sign that like your business brain has been a little bit, it's a little less dramatic than maybe it used to be.
My business brain is definitely less dramatic. And I think that's supported by like my like personal brain, because you like, you taught me that I have to feel my feelings, which is so hilarious. And like, this is like a business coaching like thing, but that was such a big like aha and like breakthrough for me. Was I didn't even realize how much I was like pushing things down, and how that was affecting, and how much I just wanted to keep pushing and ignoring thoughts and feelings and just making it work for, in my business, and like feeling my feelings, but then not like making them mean something, was like across the board in every aspect of my life, like a huge gift that I like talk about all the time. And like, I talk about with my husband, I'm like, I did a really good job with my feelings today. Like, and how much that affects me as a business owner, of like acknowledging feelings aren't bad. We're human, like all of that stuff. It sounds like simple or even trite, but was totally transformative.
Yeah, I totally agree from personal experience. That was one of the biggest things. And then when you're able to acknowledge that, then you can look at the patterns of why are things happening? How am I creating what I'm creating? But when you're stuck in that narrative of the stories and the like operating from emotions as needing to solve them, it's virtually impossible to see the patterns and to solve business problems neutrally. It's impossible. It's like those emotions just cloud everything.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a few more questions. You are someone that from the moment that you came to me, you are like, I don't want to do this alone. I want to coach. I want help. And I'm really curious, like a lot of the things that we have been kind of alluding to, because we haven't talked really specifically about what the work looks like, but a lot of people think, and this might be true in some cases, that, oh, I can just do that work myself. Like, I think a lot of people would hear you say, oh, the answer is feeling my feelings. Okay, I'll do that. And then they're like, I'm going to go do that. Yeah. And then are really confused why they've been working on feeling their feelings, but are not experiencing necessarily maybe the growth or the success that they're after. So from the very beginning, you've been like, no, I want help with this. I don't want to do this alone. I'm really curious. I think that is a super healthy, it's a super, just how do I don't even want to describe it? Like, it's a very mature way to approach the problem as you see it. So I'm really curious, did you always feel that way? Is that something that's just been like, I'm the person that gets help and takes care of things like with help? Or was there a shift at a certain point where you were like, I'm not going to go as far DIYing this?
I mean, it's similar to like my, the reason why I wanted a team was like, I'm not great at everything. It's like, I'm not great at everything, but I want to be the best. So who do I need to help me so I can be the best? Like, I'm competitive, and I'm like, I have, other entrepreneur friends who they don't really invest in coaching. And I'm like, you're over there like white knuckling it and stressed out and trying to figure this out, whereas I have help. Like, this is great. I don't know. I'm definitely someone who's I've always loved like continued education. I love learning. Again, I see that as like adding tools to my toolkit. Like, it just makes me better. And like, entrepreneurship can be very lonely. And like, oh my gosh, like I look at like my cousin and she'll, meet with her manager and they'll have a one-on-one and they'll talk about like, things she's doing right and things that she could be improving on. And that's how she gets better at her job, is because she has someone who's more experienced than her, like helping her through it, giving her different goals. And I'm envious sometimes of like other people who they have a boss, they have someone else who's coaxing them through and who's helping them and guiding them. So I'm like, I want that. Like, I don't, especially where I'm approaching right now. I have a small team and I know where I want to be. And I've had a hard time seeing like, what are the in between,
like the stepping stones.
yeah, because I'm like, I know I can't jump from here to here, but I don't know what these middle parts look like. And I think this next year is going to take a lot more of like business strategy, CEO leader Hayley. And that's not my instinctual area of expertise. Like I'm a marketer, I'm a strategist, like that's where I can, talk for days. But this other stuff, like running a business, scaling a company, like this isn't I didn't go to business school as an English major. Like this isn't something that I learned. And I'm also someone who likes to, I do like to figure it out on my own and I like to do it my way, but that doesn't mean I need to invent the wheel and figure out things alone when I could have support. So I'm someone who's really drawn to like investing in my when I say personal, I mean business growth, but investing in my business growth, because like you said earlier, the person I need to be to grow this company, like I'm not her yet, or like I'm who I am for this stage, but I need to be that person for the next step. And I want help getting there. I would never, I don't think I would even think it was possible without a coach. I think I would think smaller and stay where I was at. If I didn't have support and people being like, showing me the next level and showing me how to not only reach goals, but like integrate a new way of thinking. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I totally agree. And I even think that like what you're talking about in terms of like, you don't think that like, if you didn't have a coach, you probably would just stay where you're at. I think sometimes like sometimes it's also even having someone else hold you accountable to holding space for thinking bigger. Like I'm not telling you like, you got to think bigger. You got to think about what's, but within Coaching Club, we have a very regular opportunity for holding the space to think about what that next step is, to think about what your next level is. And I think so many people who are really busy and go about their day don't hold the space for that. And the business owners that I've seen stay stagnant and not grow, and the ones that really were in a lot of pain and really needed to, were the ones who were super resistant to holding space to conceive of and work on their business. And they just stayed busy in the tasks at hand.
Are used to like, I would get the itch for like something new, something like bigger, and I'd want to like do something. I mean, there are so many things that I launched in the past. Like I had a shop on my website. I had never made a sale, but I had like a shop of like different like downloads and guides. And like now like if I went into Coaching Club and I suggest that, you would be like, okay, like tell me more about this. And how does this factor into like your goals? And it's like, oh, it doesn't at all. I think I'm just kind of bored and want to play in Canva and I'm actually avoiding this. And you'd be like, well, then let's deal with this. Like I was just the accountability piece.
I actually had that conversation with someone in the group about a month ago. Like,
Yeah, like,
how does this fit into your big vision? No. Okay, then no.
right. And it took me a long time to like learn that. And
Yeah.
so it all, another reason why like I work with a coach is because I'm like, well, I can take 5 years to learn these lessons, or I can make it a lot faster by having help.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so I have two final questions and then we'll wrap up. So I sometimes find it hard. I can explain the logistics of what we do, how I coach, my philosophy, this framework that we follow. But I'm really curious from a client's point of view, from you as a client's point of view, how would you describe, like from a big picture, how would you describe the work that we do together?
I would say it's a really intentional way to set goals, and come up with your like recipe to achieve them, alongside the framework of like thought work. So approaching everything and seeing the things through the thoughts that you have, the way that you feel influences the actions you take, because setting a goal and making a plan is one part of it, but it's actually like taking intentional action throughout the month to achieve your goal, and then reflecting on why that worked or why it didn't work. Like, one thing I really like is I never feel like any month is like a failure. I mean, I think of marketing that way too. Like, even if something doesn't go well, like you just learned something, but no month is a failure. Even if like sometimes, this was probably more early on, but like sometimes it'll be time for us to review our goal at the end of the month. And I'm like, oh shoot, I haven't taken any intentional action towards it. Oh no. And that's not necessarily true. The plans that I create at the beginning of the month aren't like, I mean, sometimes I played with things like 5 intentional interactions on LinkedIn or something like that. But what I've found works for me is more about intentionally creating situations where I feel inspired, of service. And when I have like a plan like that, even at the end of the month where I'm like, oh no, I wasn't even thinking about it, I look back and I'm like, I did all the things, because now it's become so like integral. So it's not, it's much higher level than like making a plan to achieve your goal for the month and then reflecting back. It's a lot more about figuring out your like best self, or not necessarily best self, but your best recipe is like what you call it. And like how you need to carry yourself as you operate your business so that you are the person who easily achieves goals. Like, I feel like that's the big work we do.
Yeah, absolutely. That's in alignment with what I would say. Yeah. I think I always have this is my own thought error, that like this is something that's very hard to understand until you experience it, I think. And that's why people that come to my workshops and people that have had like calls with me or coached with me are like there is a moment where they're like, oh my God, I get it. You are magic. This is it.
Yeah.
But until people have had that, it's very easy to sort of be like, I don't fully get that, so that must not be right. You know?
One thing I like about, or that I think is different, is it's not group coaching like a mastermind is, or like a small group coaching is. It's group coaching in that we're all going through this process together and kind of all know the framework that we're going to do, you know, at the beginning of the month and at the end of the month. And there are so many common thought errors that as we're doing it together and someone brings something up, it's just as valuable sometimes more valuable to hear someone else talk about a thought error that you've had and then watch you coach them through it. It's not that it's group coaching and that we'll all be giving each other advice. Like sometimes we just like encourage each other in the chat and like we're all encouraging each other in the group, but it's more like watching other people at various different levels of business with totally different goals have the same thought errors that, I mean, if all that came out of that was that you just feel less alone, that in itself is so valuable when you're an entrepreneur and like doing this. But I really like that part, that even if I'm like, I think all of us in the group would say, if we do miss a call, we all watch the replay. Because
that's amazing feedback to hear.
I think most of us would, or even like we do the same, we fill out the same template at the beginning of the month and at the end of the month. Like it wouldn't even occur to me to not, if I couldn't do it on this day of the call, you'd think I would just fill it out on my own. That would never even occur to me. I have to push play and watch you walk us through the questions, because you ask them in a different way, or someone will bring something up, and you just get so much deeper when you're kind of doing this together with other people. Yeah.
I love and appreciate that feedback so much. So some like behind the scenes insight is I was in a mastermind for a while and had sort of similar teachings. Like I took some of those teachings as inspiration, but what I kept finding for myself was that I wasn't holding the space for doing the work. And I was like, I want a space where I can go, I can set it on my calendar and someone else walks me through this regularly, because I know that this is the work. I know that this is what has to happen. I know that this is what needs to happen to create results and meet my goals. But I was having a hard time holding myself accountable. And so I was like, that was very, very intentional. That I was like, I don't want to just coach people. I also want to give them the space to do the work, so that it doesn't have to be that coaching is more work on top of what they're already doing in their business.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's why it was very intentional to integrate it. It was like, no, we're doing this together as a group, so that you know that if you show up to the call, when the call is over, you've done the work. You don't then have to add it to a to-do list. Like that's ridiculous. So that was very intentional. And I couldn't agree more, like personally. And also I've had people recently been very opposed to, I don't want to do group coaching. I don't want to do group coaching. And I'm like, you want to do this group coaching. I promise you want to do this group coaching, because we're not like talking, I'm not telling you like you need to do XYZ to your funnel. I'm walking people in the group through massive mindset obstacles that are stopping them from explosive growth. Yeah. And I guarantee that you will have, if not all of them, a majority of them. And what people don't get is that watching someone else make that shift and see that moment where they're like, oh my gosh, I am doing that. You experience the shift yourself in the process of watching it. Totally. And so it's never like time wasted. There's always,
it's not something where you're like zoning out and waiting for your turn ever. People, everyone's like engaged and listening and paying attention and getting something out of it. Like you can see the way that we're all like nodding, like we're all like, yes, or then in the comments, oh my God. Like how many times do people will be like, Hayley, you're like, are you inside my brain?
You're in my head. That's me.
Yeah. Like we're all experiencing the same things. Or sometimes someone will articulate something that I'm like, that's what I'm doing. And it's like, I hadn't even gotten there yet. So it like speeds up like, whoa, watching her do that. Like I don't even know if I would have made that connection.
Yeah, completely. Like the way that I visually think about it is like you have this road you're on and your goal is at the end, and there's all these boulders, which are like your internal obstacles, and you're the one that's right in front of you, next in line is the one that you've been focused on or the one that you're thinking about or working through. Someone else might have one that's like 5 down the road. And if you come to coaching and by watching that person get that coaching, it's like, I feel like it's like a video game. Like it explodes that boulder so that it compresses your timeline. So you don't have to deal with that when you get to it. You deal with it then and it's out of the way. Yeah.
A, that's such a good metaphor. B, you're so good with metaphors and I'm so visual that like, that's another thing that like, I love so much. You'll give me a thing and that like, that helps me integrate so much. I'll be like, bicycle. And I'm like, I'll write that down. And then later I'm going through something. I'm like, bicycle. Yep. I know exactly what to do. No,
I
like,
have
boulder.
to. It's the boulder.
Boulder.
I absolutely have to, because I have found, I don't know if I used to need this when I was younger, like before kids and whatever, but I have found that for my brain to fully like, there's like knowledge and then there's understanding. Like,
Yeah.
I have found for myself at this point in my life to fully understand and like embody and be able to explain all the nuances of something, I have to have a metaphor. Otherwise, I like, it just doesn't fully make sense. I feel like it's kind of a little cloudy, or like I can explain pieces of it, but not all of it. And so I am always like looking for that right metaphor, because that's the moment for me when I can visualize the metaphor. I'm like, oh, clicked. Like it just clicks for me. So it's like a tool for myself and I can't help but share it with my people. Okay. So I feel like my last question we've totally covered, but we can maybe just wrap with this. And so there are a lot of, well, maybe not a lot. There is a number of components that go into working with me. Like there's the philosophy, there's the framework, there's certain tools, there's like intentionally creating results, etc. I'm curious, what do you think is the most valuable component of all of the work that we do together?
For me personally,
or is it like you can't? Yeah, for you personally.
I mean, logistically, like how you just said, that, you know, how it was intention to have time on your calendar. Like I wouldn't be as successful with this if it wasn't like that. Like that is totally how I operate. But I think the really seeing how, because again, I'm like a push the feelings down person. Don't feel the feelings. Those are bad feelings. If you feel that way, you're not a good leader. If you get stressed out, you're not going to be successful. Like learning not only like it's okay to feel those things, that doesn't necessarily mean anything, but let's also pay attention to, if I don't address those feelings and I operate in that world, thinking those thoughts, feeling that way, how am I going to be able to be the most of service? And to see that it was influencing my actions and then my results was the biggest aha. And I wonder, like, I wish that I came to a place of, you know, giving myself that grace and space just from a place of love and self-care. And I hope to teach my children that. For me, it took, you're not going to get the results that you want. It took tying it to that to get me to pay attention. And now it has just influenced every aspect of my life. Like going back to like all the tangible things. I mean, when I first started my business, like my husband and I were, when I say paycheck to paycheck, I mean like negative balance, paycheck to paycheck. And we took our kids on, we went to Plum Island for a week in this Airbnb, and I got to invite my family up, my family who usually like, they'll bring us on their vacations and we're the like, you know, hey, nope, we hosted, I took my kids to Disney World in January, like I bring my team out here and like host them, like pay for their flights or hotel, these things that I've been able to do is because the thought work that we do, not only does it help me get results, but it helps me like believe things about myself to like, I can manage stress. I can like approach things with ease. I can like believe in bigger, like that part of it. And again, I came to it because it was like, well, if you think and believe these things, you're going to walk around like this and you're not going to get great results. So it took it affecting my business, but it has transformed my like life. Like, I mean, I do here's my vision board. I do your vision board workshop. And I think it was this year that I like posted a picture and you were like, isn't that from your vision board? And it was unintentional. It wasn't like I was like, oh, I'm going to create this moment and then be like, look, I did the thing I wanted to on my vision board. It was like an organic moment. We took the picture and you pointed out later, like, that's from your vision board. And it was like unbelievable.
Yeah. I feel like I'm going to cry because I love all of that so much, because I know personally how much your business and the health of your business affects the whole rest of your life, your family life, your relationships, what you're able to do and not do, the stress that you bring home or don't bring home, all of that, your ability to be present with your kids, like all of it. And just like you alluded to, is like we pass that to our children. We pass our thought patterns and our way of living and our way of being to our children. And so it's the most beautiful gift that you're not only giving yourself and your team members, but you're like literally like passing down the most amazing gift you could ever give to anybody.
Yeah.
So, and giving them beautiful experiences in the process, because whether we like it or not, money buys all the stuff.
Right. Yep.
You know, it does. And so if you aren't making enough of it, it's not only a really giant struggle day to day, but it makes it, when you're in that kind of like survival lack mindset, it's very hard to think bigger, to imagine what life could be, because your body is in a state of survival and stress, and your brain literally shuts down that creative thinking piece. So to get up out of that, like, that's why people say success creates more success, because once you're able to get out of that survival mode, like the sky is the limit, because you know that you're taken care of. And at that point, it's just like, let's do this.
Yeah, totally.
Awesome. Well, I have to thank you so much for coming on, taking an hour of your time. And I just have to say again, like, you're such a joy to have as a client. And thank you for sharing really candidly, like, what your experience has been and the growth that you've had. And I know that there's a whole lot of people out there that are in your situation of where you were like a year and a half ago. And actually, to even think like in a year and a half, what you described, like a year and a half is not very long, right?
Yeah.
To have you've grown your team more, you've upgraded your office, you've done all these vacations, your revenue has tripled. That's massive.
Yeah.
So you should also just be like so proud of yourself. I mean, I know we've been like saying that this is about the work, but you decided to do the work, and that's in my opinion, honestly, like 80% of or maybe 90% of the battle.
Yeah. I will say to like, that is part of it. Like, you got to show up, and like I show up in coaching club and I'm honest. And I'm like, sometimes I feel like I come in as a brat and I'm like, I'm having a temper tantrum in my mind. But I know I'm like, this is when I need help. This is when I'm resistant and I don't want to, and this feels yucky. And this is when I come in and need help. And like, you do a really good job of like, I think for everybody, like guiding us through and being like, all right, and asking really hard questions. And so you got to be able to answer them. You got to be able to answer those hard questions and be really honest. And then I think it's easy.
Yeah. Yeah. From the client's perspective, that's that moment of like, this feels gross. I need help. I don't want to be here. And sounds horrible, but like, I get so excited about those moments, because the way that I coach and the way that I know growth happens is that is the thing that when we work through it, you grow.
Yeah.
And
Totally.
so for me, I'm like, I know that this feels crappy and horrible, but I'm almost like giddy about it because I'm like, let's work through this problem. Let's solve this problem, because then you're golden until you reach the next one.
Right. Right.
Right.
Absolutely.
But it's like, I'm like addicted to solving problems from the inside out, because that is how it happens. And the way that you know that you have a problem to solve is that it's that
Yeah.
tantrum, it's that frustration, it's that stress, it's that whatever, is like, that's like a magnifying glass on where we need to look to
Yeah.
what we need to work through. So I love when people come to the group,
We're like,
melting down.
help.
I'm like, you guys, this is great. Okay, awesome. So let's wrap, because I've taken a lot of your time, but I appreciate you so much. Have a wonderful day. And share quickly, like if people want to follow you, see what you're all about, all of that, what's the best way for them to get to know or be in Hayley's world?
Yeah. Instagram, Hayley Denker Marketing. It's Hayley Denker Marketing. Or on LinkedIn, and like similar to Libby, like I love cheering people on and like watching businesses grow and like offering any kind of insights I can. So I love when my circle grows. So if you follow me, I'll check your business out and follow you back.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Have
Libby.
a good day.
Bye.